Thank you everyone for attending the National Farmers Union's webinar series, NF University. Today we are joined by Lucy Sherritt, coordinator of CBAN, the Canadian Biotechnology Action Network, and our presenters, Celio Pinheiro Leocadillo and Diosmar Filho. The topic is resisting land grabs for eucalyptus plantations in Brazil. So I'm going to turn it over to Lucy. Lucy, please go ahead and tell us how you met our presenters and learned about the issues that we are discussing today.
Great. Thank you so much, Darren, and thank you, everyone. Thank you to the National Farmers Union for providing this unique opportunity to hear from Quilombola community leaders. I had the privilege to meet Celio in person in his community when I was in Brazil in May. I was there with my colleague Caitlin Duthie-Canicat from the Canadian Biotechnology Action Network, who is also here tonight. We were invited to go to Brazil to join an international meeting of the campaign to stop genetically engineered trees. The meeting was held in Brazil because Brazilian regulators recently approved a genetically engineered glyphosate-tolerant eucalyptus tree. So that's a herbicide-tolerant eucalyptus tree. It has not yet been planted, but this is a very serious development in the history of genetically engineered trees and in the history of eucalyptus in Brazil, because this genetically engineered eucalyptus was developed by the major pulp company Suzano. So as part of our meetings in Brazil, we were invited to visit communities to learn about the impacts of Suzano's existing and vast eucalyptus tree plantations. This was a really important opportunity. I could never have understood the massive scale of the plantations if I had not seen them with my own eyes. I want to thank Celio and his community for their hospitality and for the time that he and other community members have taken to explain the impacts of these plantations to us, as he will do again tonight. I will introduce him and Diosmar, but before they talk, we'll show just two very short videos of 5 minutes in total, so you can see a little bit also for yourself of where we were in Brazil, where the communities are. So I'm very happy to present Celio Pinheiro Leocadillo, who is a Quilombola born in the Quilombo of Volta Miúda in Caravelas in the far state of Bahia state, far south of Bahia state in northeast Brazil. He's a mobilizer and an activist. He is coordinator of the Quilombola movements and articulation of the far south of Bahia, and he is president of the Association of Remaining Quilombola Producers of Volta Miúda, Caravelas. I'm also really happy to present Diosmar Filho, who is a PhD candidate in geography at the Fluminense Federal University in Brazil. He's a researcher and scientific coordinator of Yalenta Research Association, where he leads the inequalities and climate change research. He coordinated the research project Urban Legal Amazon's Social Spatial Analysis of Climate Change, 2020 and 2022, and is currently co-leading the research project Climate Adaptation, an intersection between Brazil 2022-2024. So just before we hear from them and invite them to speak, we have this 1 minute video, first taken when we were in Brazil. We wanted to show this because you can see our speaker Celio in the context of the eucalyptus harvest. If Jill, you can please go ahead. Great. Thanks, Jill. So I couldn't hear that audio. I don't know if others could. So perhaps we will not play the next video if there's no audio. So perhaps I could invite then, oh,
nos alimentar, mas também para alimentar a sociedade da qual a gente tem essa pertença, a necessidade de se sentir parte dela também com a produção de alimentos.
And we are sharing with society at large that we are able to, in areas where there is eucalyptus, we can produce healthy food that's good for us to survive on and also to provide food to the society at large that we are part of as well.
Como vocês podem conferir, aqui é parte do que a gente produz no acampamento.
In the table in front of us, you see part of what we produce here in the camp.
Que é aí a laranja,
Oranges,
a banana,
bananas,
a melancia,
watermelon,
o aipim,
the manioc,
e o café, né?
and coffee.
Então, isso aqui é tudo que a gente produz, aonde aqui em torno, onde vocês podem olhar aqui, era tudo
much of what we produce here in areas that were once covered by eucalyptus.
E dizer que mesmo sabendo que a luta não é fácil,
Even though we know the struggle is not easy,
mas seguimos em resistência na luta pela terra
we're still resisting in the struggle for our land
e contra a empresa Suzano
and against the Suzano Corporation
e o plantio de eucalipto.
and against the planting of eucalyptus.
E defendemos a produção de alimentos saudáveis.
And we defend the production of healthy food.
E além da produção, quando a gente veio para cá,
So also, in addition to just farming when we come here,
viemos também com a tarefa de resgatar a comunidade,
our task has been to recover communities.
que a igreja que vocês estão vendo estava destruída,
The church, the chapel that you see over here had been destroyed.
reconstruímos
We
e aqui
rebuilt it.
hoje está presente a comunidade
Today is present in our community
com celebrações e missas. Então,
with celebrations and masses.
todos os vizinhos que aqui tem em torno não acreditavam que hoje poderia estar dessa forma.
All the neighbors around this region didn't believe that it would be recovered this way.
Mas o MST veio e resgatou a comunidade.
But the MST came to recover the community.
great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for your patience. And certainly we can post those videos along with other videos that Celio has provided so that you can see them. I will now happily pass the microphone to Celio. Thank you so much.
Good evening and good morning to people around the world, wherever you are. It's a great pleasure for me to be here to help show the importance of in a live event like this. I know there are many people from the other side of the world that would like to become aware about our reality and of our community in the far south of Bahia in Brazil. And here I am bringing a major denunciation that you in Canada will be able to use. Your colleagues in Canada came to see us on our own ground. And I believe that you are the ones that will be able to help us to depollute our land. Today, in the name of my Quilombola community, Volta Miúda, in Caravelas, far south Bahia, I want you can help the outside world get to know what's happening in our land. We've got all kinds of water sources, rivers, and springs that have dried up. And only you out there will be able to help us on that. We have not been able to demarcate our land officially yet. Nothing has been done. But I can tell you some about my childhood and my current life. I'm 45 years old. And during these 45 years, I've gone through good periods of my life with lots of production in my community. I was not born in a hospital, but at home. I was delivered by my grandmother, who took me in her hands and took care of me after my mother's pregnancy, during my mother's pregnancy, and was with me since then. And it's necessary now. That we be able to work together so that we can achieve our community's objectives. It's a very needy community in Volta Miúda. And I would say even more, our community once produced a lot of food. And today we are totally surrounded by eucalyptus plantations, like you've seen in these movies. During our lives, even with so many difficulties, we are peoples that resist. We resist and we persist, because nothing can survive on the land with so many atrocities that we have experienced in the hands of these pulp companies. When these companies started moving into our communities, areas, They had all this discourse about bringing our communities something good, but once they settled in, everything changed. They don't work right. There are no public policies for the communities. And they only extract the wealth from our land and leave no contribution for us. In addition, what we have here is a lot of rights that have been violated by this Suzano company, the paper and pulp company. Many springs that we have here, and they have names, each of them. I made an invitation to Lucy, our colleague, Lucy, and our colleague, Jill. There's a thing we say, it goes way back. It's in the time of my grandparents. On tomorrow, the 27th of October, 2023, my grandfather would be 110 years old if he were still with us. But he passed away in 2008. He's no longer here with us. My grandfather, Leocadio, who gave me my name, Leocadio, my last name, and if he were with us, he'd be 110 years old. He left us a legacy for our struggle that I am still carrying on, for us not to have to leave our land. This T-shirt here says ancestral territory in Portuguese. Our ancestors live inside us. Through our struggles, which began with our elders and within our community today, there are many people who are still giving continuity and will until the end of our lives too. I'm part of the 7th generation in this community. Many have come before me. It's in respect for them that we today are carrying on this struggle. But this struggle must be successful for us to continue into new generations. And I also am part of our way of cultivating the land, and there are many people who are learning how we produce our crops. In the midst of this sea of eucalyptus, we are still managing to produce many kinds of crops. And these crops are they are our livelihood and for our families. And the way we produce is that we are innovating every day, but without giving up on the customs that we have learned and inherited from our elders. But there's no way we can produce with more quality because of the eucalyptus monoculture. Eucalyptus has impacts on our entire lives, not just through the production, but also in our life, the ways of life. Eucalyptus interferes in the way we live, affecting our water springs, in the air we breathe, and through this kind of communication. Right now, I am in a city because I have to, because I cannot live in my community, because our territory is in the hands of the company that we are fighting against tirelessly. So since 2005, we have been struggling for this territory to return to our hands, for us to be able to give dignified lives for our future generations. So those of you who were with us in our community, you saw how eucalyptus is perverse. The way it is grown is totally wrong. It has impacts on the environment, the soil, it kills the wild animals, and it also it has an impact on the entire communities. The domestic animals suffer a lot with the monocrops of eucalyptus. In addition, eucalyptus is very irregular compared to our communities and our homes. The eucalyptus is moving in onto the homes and the yards of the families and the communities. In the Volta Miúda community's territories, we've got an archaeological site that goes back to pre-colonial times. This part of our memories of our ancestors, as this is part of our history as well. This is a place that should be respected, but the pulp company does not respect it. They plant eucalyptus and degrade the water springs, they degrade the soil, they pollute the environment, and they're doing all the processes that they should not. In addition, they attack us, won't let us even sleep with the dust coming from the roads. You'll see videos, many videos of ours that are degrading, which is the way the company handles our nearby areas. I have been actually putting my own life at risk and my family members who live in this region and my whole community threatened by this eucalyptus monoculture corporation. Since 2017, we have been working with the Federal Prosecutor's Office, the Federal Defender's Office, tirelessly. And they are carrying out their roles, but there's somebody holding up the struggle, holding up the suits and the process, the legal process. In the capital city of Salvador in our state, there are more than 1,000 pages in the suit files documenting our denunciations. In Volta Miúda alone, which is only one example. But here I represent not only Volta Miúda community, I speak in the name of many other communities in similar situations. In the far south of Bahia, there are more than 20 Quilombola communities established. But today, there are 8 communities that have had their land holdings certified, only 8. Certified by the Palmares Foundation, which is the authority responsible. And of those 8 communities, there are Volta Miúda Caravelas, Maiá Caravelas, Mutum Caravelas. Caravelas is a municipality where they're all located. Rio do Sul in Nova Viçosa municipality. El Verso, also in Nova Viçosa. Cândido Mariano, Nova Viçosa. Vila Juazeiro in Itirapuã. Dos Motas community in Itaim municipality. All these 8 communities, of these 8, 2 of them are almost entirely lost with no more residents in those 2 communities, which is Naya Mutum. Those 2 communities disappeared. They were eliminated by eucalyptus. Despite that, I can still tell you about our agriculture. We plant different things in different seasons of the year. Our communities produce a little bit of everything, of each crop. But we don't have enough water to irrigate all our fields. Since all of our areas, the land, all of the water springs have been dried up. Even so, we do raise our crops of beans, squash, machixe, okra, peanuts, cassava to make flour, orange, we plant orange orchards and several crops. But this all varies from one season to the next. Although for a long time, with the monocrop moving in, our entire region has changed significantly. Even changing the seasons of the year. When I was younger, for my parents' times and compared to today, we see that every year that we do the plants, we would have the right time to plant for each season. Example, like in March, for example, is the time to plant corn and beans together. And today, we're not able to plant because of the shortage of water of rainwater even at the right time. And in addition, the eucalyptus is problematic in our territory, creates more problems in our territory. All around our territory, we have problems with the weather this time of year. And I can also say that when I was younger, I was able to, and I remember clearly the company clearing the land to put in eucalyptus. And today they put in a road. That road caused much degradation with the support of someone, and that someone, we're not sure who. But the federal prosecutor's office is taking care of these suits today in court. But the environmental degradation has been huge. And those of you who visit us, you witnessed this. You witnessed our difficulties. Today, to begin the operation with the kinds of trucks that transport the trunks with the wood, the eucalyptus trunks, they make it hard for our communities as well. Going down our traditional roads that the company totally modified. And our communities cannot visit each other anymore. So we can no longer leave Volta Miúda, Rio do Sul, or Alvesa to get to neighboring communities. So we are being blocked in terms of being able to travel down these roads. This is dangerous, extremely dangerous, because this area belongs to the communities. These are traditional, century-old roads, and these roads are the ones that are holy roads for us. And once again, I would say that despite all these difficulties, we are happy people. And our happiness that we share comes from our ancestors who make us strong and give us faith and allow us to resist. So our experience here that you shared with us is fantastic for us, because we are aware that there are people interested in our case, in our cause. So I'm very thankful to Lucy, and I thank her through Beto at the Fazi NGO locally in Espírito Santo. And I also thank Wiener, the Dutchman who has lived and worked here, Vinny. He's a fantastic person who has brought us many opportunities. And today, our wish for Lucy is that she was the first person that really was moved by our cause. But I have to thank everyone here too. I got a person here that Giosma, a longtime colleague who helps us very much, particularly to help recognize the territories and to help guide us in our cause. I hope I've made some contribution to what you are looking for in terms of knowing about our communities. In addition, I'm entirely free for you to make any contribution that is necessary. And then, since we are facing a struggle like this, my whole body and soul are dedicated to our winning all these battles. And once again, I would tell you that we need to have a chance, not for me, but for our communities, for us to someday have a chance to be present with you where you are, for us to have face-to-face discussions. This virtual means of communication is really a shortcut for us and valuable, but there's nothing better than to be close to each other face to face. And I also say that people abroad, in addition to all of you, there are many people who are embracing our cause. I also speak here in name of a cousin of mine who's in the United States, Mr. Mestre Jamaica, who also carries the name of my Quilombola community from Volta Miúda. He has a school there, a capoeira school called Roupa Miúda, or small clothes, in the US. And that for us is a great honor. The Volta Miúda's name is being used abroad, because I can say that Volta Miúda, our community, is extremely wealthy in culture. And our culture is more and more being worn down by agribusiness through eucalyptus monoculture. And we are trying to achieve every day a little bit, a minimum of our rights to be recognized. Your union, which invited me to speak today, I'm very thankful to you for this chance for us to speak here today. I don't want to be unfair to anyone, but I must say that all of you, for us, are extremely important for our cause and for our struggle. In addition, I would also say that after this webinar, this live webinar, our message should be opened up to many more people for us to be able to achieve a point and have achievements that our community deserves. And I would also say that in the name of all of our communities, in the name of all of our families, there are many, many families in our community that as long as we have life and health, I'll be here to fight for our people. And I'm very thankful to all of you. Thank you very much. And whatever you need, I'll be here to contribute more. Thank you for this chance.
Thank you, Celio. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm very happy to hear from you, and we're very happy now also to invite Diosmar to speak. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for this invitation to be together with Celio here to make a contribution here, because Celio's presentation talks about his land and the territories that for decades have been impacted by something that was called reforestation, quote unquote, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to reduce impacts on the Atlantic forest that had been destroyed in these regions on the eastern coast of Brazil, and more specifically, to protect what was left of the Atlantic forest in the far south of Bahia state. So I'm thankful for this invitation to talk about those lies, as the challenge that Celio and his communities face in their territory shows that eucalyptus is not a policy of reforestation, because it degrades the land. So how can we talk about reforestation when we're destroying the soil, leaving nothing there? So when we talk about planting 10 eucalyptus trees, it's not the same as 200 hectares or 5,000 hectares. In Volta Miúda, this is a territory where you've got 5,000 hectares impacted by eucalyptus, planted to eucalyptus. So to live in an environment like that is no biodiversity, no sensitivity, and to live in the silence of the crimes that the state is favoring, because Brazilian eucalyptus is not just the eucalyptus of companies, it's funded by the Brazilian state. That's the big problem. When the Brazilian state takes taxpayers' money to fund those monocrops, and that involves, but the thing is, it's not to benefit Brazilian society. Eucalyptus, is turned into pulp, and that's used for the paper industry and other products. But eucalyptus, in its mission for sustainability, we cannot speak of sustainability for a monocrop that is established, that is killing the land. And it's not just killing the land, you're establishing the death of the waters as well, because you export all the water to produce the monoculture for the industry, and the land and the water being exploited is another industry that favors other groups and more groups and more groups that are not in Brazilian territory at all. The impoverishment of this region proves that over the past 30, 40 years, with an pulp industry established on the land and exploiting the water, has brought no improvements in human development for the far south of Bahia. So that policy established in the 1980s, consolidated in the 90s, and strengthened in the last 2 decades, that proves that for the state of Bahia and for the state of Minas Gerais at this time, when we're having extreme climate events, and you cannot no longer have the Atlantic forest, that means that cities are being impacted even by floods because the monocrop is not protecting them with land to hold the water because the rivers, the lakes are all dried up.
Então, quando a
And
gente
so when you
estabelece, né,
establish
processo
a
como esse,
process
em
like this
diálogo com o
in
sindicato,
dialogue with
com
the unions
a
and the
universidade e
universities
todos aqui que
and
estão
everyone who's
colaborando com a gente,
collaborating
com o
here
Célio, a Lucy,
with
né, que ela
Lucy and
recebe
others,
muito
Gideon.
da Lucy,
Lucy
fala muito do
talked about
David, da
David and
visita de
your
vocês,
visit here.
né? Esse contato que
This
vocês
contact
tiveram
that you had is
favorece algo
favorable.
que é essencial para o
It's
que a gente, inclusive,
essential
está
for
discutindo, que é a
what we
transição
discussed, which
justa,
is a
né?
fair
Não tem como fazer uma
transition. We cannot
transição
have a
global
fair
justa
global transition,
aonde em
a
realidades
just
como essa,
transition
né, do
with this
centro-sul da Bahia,
reality
e
in
não é só
far
aqui,
South
isso
Bahia. And
aqui
it's
hoje
not
está
just there,
subindo,
it's
né,
moving north
tá
as well,
tomando a região
taking over
nordeste,
the
mas
northeast.
extremo sul da
And
Bahia,
in far south
norte do
of
Espírito
Bahia, the
Santo, Minas
northern
Gerais, o
Espírito
centro-oeste, não
Santo,
sei,
in
vai ser uma
Minas, in the
coisa assim
central west,
justamente
in
como
western Brazil,
se as pessoas estão
people are
morrendo
dying
porque não podem
because they
plantar,
cannot
né?
plant their
Então, se a
crops
gente
anymore.
hoje tivesse uma
So if
forma
there
de
was
um
some way
grande
that we could
estudo,
do a
nós
big
íamos saber
study,
qual
we would
seria
find
a
out what the
qualidade de
quality
vida
of
e as
life is
condições de
in the health
saúde dessas
conditions of these
populações que vivem
populations
há
who have been
40
living
anos
for
dentro de uma
40 years in the
monocultura.
midst of a
Uma
monocrop.
monocultura, para saber
Now,
qual o
just
tamanho
so
do
that know
impacto
the
do
size of the
eucalipto, é só
impact of
visitar as
eucalyptus, just
comunidades
visit
extremo
the
sul da Bahia
communities
para
in far
ver
south
o tanto de
Bahia to see
agrotóxicos
how
que os
many
quilombolas têm que usar
pesticides
para
the
plantar comida.
Quilombolas themselves have to use to plant
A partir
food,
do momento que
since they
a gente
have
usar
to use
agrotóxicos para
pesticides
plantar
to produce
comida,
their own food. That
significa que
means
eles nem
that
eles
not
conseguem
even
mais
they are able
viver
to
sem
live without
agrotóxicos.
pesticides.
Então, isso
And
tem um
that has an
impacto, né, que a
impact.
gente não. O
The
impacto de curto
short-term
prazo é a
impact is
colhida
food
lucrada.
on your
De
plate.
longo
In the
prazo
long
é o que a
term
gente está
is
vendo,
what
as
we see
condições
the
de
health
saúde,
conditions,
né,
the
falta de
lack of
estudos para
study
saber quais são
to know
os
what
ceais,
the
né, a saúde das
the
mulheres, né, como
situation
as
is of
das
women's
mulheres
health
estão
that are
delibertando,
getting weaker,
crianças e
children,
adolescentes tendo, né,
adolescents with
aumento
an increase
as condições de saúde
that with
debilitadas
weakened
com
health because
aumento
of
ali de
more
hipertensão,
hypertension
muito jovem,
amongst young
adolescente com
people with
hipertensão, tudo isso.
hypertension.
Então, como é que a gente
So how do
convive
we
com
live
isso
with
tudo,
all that?
né? Como é
How
possível
can you
conviver
live
com
with the
crescimento
economic
econômico,
growth,
com a
with the
verticalização de árvores,
verticalization of
né, que não
trees
são árvores
that
que
are
estão
not trees
produzindo uma
producing
sociobiodiversidade,
socio-biodiversity?
ela
They're
está no
in the
campo do
field of this
mercado,
market
né, de
of
celulose,
pulp,
e isso
and
deixa
that
marcas.
leaves
Então, a gente está falando aí
um,
de,
a
no mínimo,
trail
40
of at least
anos
40 years
de um
of a
processo que
process,
como reverter
a destructive
hoje
process.
o
So how
título
can we
das comunidades
turn
quilombolas
around this
vão sair,
situation for the
mas elas
Quilombola
vão ter um
communities? But it's
desafio
a real challenge
de
for
pelo
them
menos 20
that
anos
for
trabalhar
at
para essa
least 20
terra
years
voltar
they'll
a
have to
viver.
work to make
Eles
this,
vão
to
ter que
give life
trabalhar
to
para
the
que
land
as
again,
águas
to bring
voltem
the
para dentro do
water back
território.
into their territory.
As águas
The
vão ter que
water will
nascer
have
de novo nos
to
territórios,
spring out again
porque o passivo é
because
muito grande, né? Então,
the
esses
losses
são
are
processos que a
very
gente precisa
great.
colocar
And
naquilo que as
then
nações
this
estão
is on the
discutindo na
agenda
conferência do
of what
clima,
the
que é uma
nations
transição
are
justa,
discussing
né?
at the
Que
climate
transição justa
conference,
nós vamos
the
fazer
COPs,
diante dessas
about a
realidades de
just
impacto em terras
transition
indígenas e
to
territórios quilombolas?
overcome the
A gente
impacts on
vai ter que
indigenous and
encontrar
Quilombola
qual é
lands.
essa
We have to see
transição,
what
porque se for a
transition is
transição,
possible.
né, de
Because if it's
salvar
just
essas
to
mesmas
save the
empresas,
same companies,
isso não é
that's not
transição
a
justa,
just,
isso é
fair
genocídio.
transition. That's genocide
Porque o
because the
crime já está
crime is
estabelecido,
already
só falta agora
established. Now,
eliminar a
all they
população.
need to do is
Porque se a
eliminate the
população
population
indígena,
because if the
né,
population
hoje, para
today
plantar em Vila
is
Juazeiro,
to plant
eles têm que
in Vila
consumir
Juazeiro, they
agrotóxico,
have to use
por mais
pesticides
que eles vendem
themselves,
na feira
even though
como
they
produto
sell their
quilombola,
products
mas
as
eles plantam
local
agrotóxico.
Quilombola community
Eles não
products,
tratam com
but they
agrotóxico
use
porque não
pesticides.
sabem cuidar da
And it's
terra.
not that
Não
they
é porque
don't
a
know
terra só
how to
dá
do
com
it, but that
agrotóxico.
the land is so poor that
O
it'll
seu
only
elemento,
produce with
o
pesticides.
seu
The
produto, a sua química, né?
ecosystem,
A sua
the
biologia não
biology, the
permite mais nascer
chemistry of
plantas
their
fora
land
daquilo que
will not allow
dar
the production
o
of
veneno para
food
que
without the
venha comida,
poison
né?
that they
Que não
spray
só
on their
alimenta as
food, not just
comunidades,
for the
mas também
communities,
é
but it's
levado
also
para as
being
feiras,
sold to
para
the
vender no comércio nos
local
municípios e nas
markets.
regiões, né? Então, a minha fala é muito nesse
So
campo,
My work is very much in that field because we need to work with the unions to mobilize fair transition that is not a reforestation that kills the land and the water and violates human beings' rights. Thank you very much. I thank you all for this moment to share with you.
Thank you so much, Diosma. I pass the parole to Darren. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you, Celio and Diosmar. Tremendously powerful presentation.